Hi, I'm Sarah Poff, and we're here to do a painting today. This is called the Van Ghostly painting. Now say that, Van Ghostly, not Van Ghost. Van Ghostly. I'm going to show you a simple step-by-step version of this painting that we'll do in about 1 hour. So get ready, it's coming. All right, so we're going to switch over here and you can see a version of my painting. I have 3 versions of this painting actually that I've done in the past. I thought you might like to see all 3 before we start. Of course, it's always your choice what you do. You might want to make it a different direction than mine, but this is how I chose to do these. To me, these remind me more of the traditional, Van Gogh kind of style with it, whereas this one here adds maybe more fall color, which I put purple in the background on that one instead of blue. So, all right, well, let's get started. So we're going to work on this painting, like I said, in about a 45-minute, a step-by-step, quick style here that we're doing. And so we want to kind of get a little bit of thinking about what we're doing. What part are we going to paint? Because we want to paint quick, and we want to do what they call back painting. This is, it doesn't matter what your skills are, whether you're consider yourself an artist or a beginner. I hope that you can learn something from what we're doing. So we want to do our ghost. Now, to me, this is sometimes kind of difficult because, you're making it flow. It needs to flow. So sometimes I even practice with my pencil, flowing those lines. How do I make that flow? All right, so I'm going to lay that off to the side, and let's see if I can flow. All right, I'm gonna practice because I'm not gonna commit yet. And as the professor always says, make it light in college. Make it light, make it sketchy. Make it sketchy in case you decide you want to change. Make it light, make it sketchy, so it'll be easier to cover. Now, I think I'm going to actually come down like this. I don't think I liked what I did there. I'm going to come around. Something kind of like that. And you, of course, could curl it back up a little more if you want. All right. And then we want another one here. So instead of some of those lines that Van Gogh had around the light, we're just adding a couple of ghosts in. Oh, I went up instead of down. I did it down on the other one, but you know what? There's not a right and wrong. See, I did this one, I swirled around, and this one I went up. It just said it should go up. That's, sometimes when you're doing some art, it just kind of speaks to you and says, oh, this is what you should do. All right, then I also want to draw in my landscape line. So I'm going to do that because I want to know where I want the blue and where I want it to be the green. All right, so now I'm going to start with the blue, and I'm going to try to paint this whole area except for where the ghosts are. Oh wait, you know what? I did forget. I want to make some circles on there because I want those lights, from the stars are close. And remember how the Van Gogh painting looked? We want to make a few circles. So, you see what I did? I just kind of went around like that. So I'm just putting them a little bit here and there. I want to grab someone's attention, and I want them to keep looking around my painting. All right. So I'm going to start, I think I'm just going to start with the green because I think I can do that quicker than I can this. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to switch brushes. Oh, I always keep, I keep brushes, just a whole different container of them. Well, could someone say, well, you use this brush for this and this brush for that? And oh, well, certainly. If you know about those brushes and what they're used for, well, go ahead and do that. I, however, just keep a bunch of them and just use, I do like this and make sure that they're flexible enough. I let my students use them when I teach classes in public, or I let the granddaughters use them, which is even worse because they don't always take care of them. And so I just do that, and I just pick out whatever brush I think will work the best on that, of what I have available. I also have a little cup of water. I don't use a lot because we want to go fast. I leave my paintbrushes with paint. Actually, some of these I did a different painting earlier. Some of these still have paint from that. Of course, I just did it a few minutes earlier. So don't leave these like that after you have finished your painting, or they will get stiff on you. But I don't wash them out until I'm totally finished with the use I have for them within that couple hour period that I'm working with a painting. I have a plate. I have a Corelle plate. This is the plates that we eat on when there's not paint on it. So I like to work with them. You know, you can do a paint palette. You could just do a paper plate. A lot of times when I'm working with a class, I do just a paper plate because you can toss it. This I keep because I like to collect the paint after I've done a painting class, and I like to make jewelry with it. So that's one of my purposes, and it works real easy. You let it dry hard, you put a little water on it, and it sloughs off, and I can make jewelry out of that. So that's what that looks like. And then when I go back and look at this, you know, sometimes I'm going, oh, you know, I didn't draw my circles for my pumpkins. Did you realize how cold it's getting out there? Fall is setting on, and some nights are really cold. And it really seems like that there's not near as much daylight. You know, I know they're really, you know, it's that time of year. But sometimes it just seems like the days are shorter. So, all right, I kind of sketched in some of the lines. We're going to try to get around them as quickly as we can because we want this painting to go within that hour-ish time. So here we go. I said I was going to try to start with the green. I have my brush right here. I'm going to go all the way across. I'm not going to worry about leaving a spot for this. Some people argue as to what Van Gogh said this was. I'll let you read about that. It's a very interesting discussion. So I'm going to take my green. I use I just buy, you know, the primary, secondary colors. Sometimes I don't even buy the secondary colors. I mix them, but sometimes I need a lot of green. And then brown's also a little bit hard to mix on your own, so I do buy it, but I just buy the basics. You're welcome to buy, you know, more of a variety if you want when you're doing these kind of paintings, but the basics is all you need. Red, blue, and yellow, the primary colors, and black and white. You can mix any you want from there. We don't have time to go into the mixing part, but it's not very hard. So I'm just going to I want some texture here, so I'm just going to kind of do a stamp like. And so I'm adding in some brown. I'm adding in some golden color here. And I'm not going to really worry about going above that little line right now because I'm going to come back to that later. I'm just blocking in the color. We're wanting to block in the color. And we don't want to add a lot of water with this because we are trying to get this painting done in about an hour. And so we're just block in, block in, block in, block in, block in. And sometimes I just go into song. I used to teach elementary school at one point in my career. And I was always trying to keep those little elementary school children on task. And so some little random song from my childhood would come back to mind. And I would just go stamp, stamp, stamp. Because that's really what I feel like we're doing. We're printing. We're stamp, 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 because I'm really not using a paint technique. I'm really just using the end of that brush. It's kind of a stiff brush. And I'm just kind of going around. And you see that I'm covering the edge of the pumpkins a little bit. I am not really worried about that because I will shore that up later as we add the orange, and then you can always come in. I'm not a traditionalist when it's, stay with paint, stay with this kind of paint, stay with that kind of paint. I come back in sometimes with colored pencils, with permanent markers, you name it. If it writes on a canvas on top of my acrylic, I do that. It's about me being able to work fast and work well. So that's kind of just what I do. So we're trying to go dry. So it's more like, we're filling in a color sheet with color, the basic background colors of a color sheet. And painting just very dry as we can. Just keep it dry. So far I have not dipped into the water at all. I just keep double loading my brush. Now double loading means that I'm doing this and this. I decided I would put a little brown, but I decided maybe more to stay with the green and the more golden kind of color. Which you would do that with some yellow, if you were making it. With what I've got on my tray, I could use my brown and I could do some yellow to get a golden color if you don't have a color like that. You can always take these skills that you learn and you can transfer them into the oil paint. You can do some in watercolor. Children and adults both could even do with colored pencils. Some of those nice colored pencils work real nice. The ones that are a better brand. They work very nice. There's also colored pencils that are watercolor pencils. Those are nice. If you have lots of skills with this, then you can add those in as you go. Right now we're just blocking in, block in, block in, block in, keeping dry so that we'll be able to go forward with this. Keeping dry, blocking in. I'm loading the brush, double loading the brush. Paint, 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 paint. I like to paint. And I like fall. And I like Van Gogh. I sometimes call myself Poff Van Gogh. One time I was caught in my school. Yes, I was going down the hall. And I wanted to talk about Van Gogh that day with the students. And so I decided to wear a Band-Aid on my ear. And the teachers, I came up with some story because I like to storytell. I came up with a story about how I'd had an accident with a knife the night before and that I had to put that Band-Aid on. And then it took a child, a student, and they said, "Oh, that's Van Gogh you're talking about. That's not really you, Mrs. Poff. You're talking about Van Gogh." It's like, oh, you caught me. You're right. So I had to admit to the teachers and the students that I was just, wanting them to remember Van Gogh. It's about remembering Van Gogh. And so they'll remember my, tricks, so to speak. And hopefully then that takes them back to remembering some fun that we've had along the way. All right, now I want to see about another brush. And I'm going to turn my painting upside down because I don't want to drag my hand in that. Oh, I see some white. I'm going to go back and get it real quick. Just rub my brush along there. Now, if you have a canvas that is a framed canvas, sometimes I just take the paint on over to the edge. That works real nice if you decide you don't want to frame it. All right, another paintbrush. Where are you? Oh, let's see. Which one do I want to use? Oh, I'm going to try this one. Sometimes I even use house paintbrushes. I think my husband must have painted the house this past summer with this one. Can you see that's the color my house is? Okay, so this one has a little bit of black left over from another project I was doing. So it's a little bit of black residual in there. Let's see, my paper towel, I'll show you. Grab a paper towel here. Right there's my paper towel. And that's kind of what I have in the background color, so a little grayish. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this in to white and blue. Now I want more of the white on this brush than I do the blue. So I'm going to just barely dip in, and I can always go back and add. So I'm just kind of doing what they call double dipping, and I'm there again. I'm not like doing as much painting strokes as I am printing the end of the brush. So it does help if you have a little bit stiffer brush. However, you can use it with the others. You certainly can. And you have the luxury on this of being able to stop it and then come back for the next step. So that works really nice too. Sometimes that just helps. That helps a lot. I hope you're going to have a good time. You know, it's kind of even fun on these kind of paintings to have a little paint party going. You and maybe some of your friends. So maybe if you watch this and you like it, and then you decide to watch it again. Our Mid-Continent Public Library, oh my goodness. I used to come to Mid-Continent and bring my children when I lived in Blue Springs and they were young. Oh, we liked Mid-Continent so much. I remember I felt like I was in a candy store. I kept getting overdue books because I didn't get them all read, didn't get them all taken back. Sometimes I couldn't find them all. And my husband would say, just check out 10. I was like, but do you know, when I was a child, we had a bookmobile. We had one little bitty teeny tiny room. Now I come to this big library and I want that book. I want that book. I want that book. I was teaching preschool at the time, so most of the books I was checking out were to help my preschoolers. I always like to add in a lot of extras when I teach, no matter, you know, I've taught kids to 3 to 103. I've done a lot of programs here in the Kansas City area over the last, about 40-ish years. Can't believe I'm getting that old. Can you believe it? You know, time passes so fast. But I still like to have fun. I do. And I still like to teach. And I like to try to teach in a simple way that many people can join in, no matter their skills. I'm sure there's somebody out there that probably knows a lot more about painting than me. Oh, I'm sure. But I like to have fun with it. It's about having fun. It's about teaching someone else and seeing the joy that brings to them and the fun. This might be one that you want to do with, and then make an extra or two and give to a friend. I just use the cheap. Some of the stores you can go around and you can just buy the canvas board. You can get fancier than that, but you can also paint on the poster board. You know, you can do acrylic or tempera on a poster board. Acrylic I do when I'm actually in, camera mode in front of the screen here, doing it because it works fast. It works up fast, and that's, with tempera paint, it's harder to keep things going in the right amount. I use a lot of tempera cakes, is what they're called. It's a little cake that this is a little bitty, looks like a hockey puck almost, and you wet it, and then you're able to come up with a lot of cool different shades and variations of painting. Watercolor is, always an option. That watercolor is a little bit harder in this kind of setting, but it's certainly something that you could carry a lot of the skills forward. All right, making the curves. It's probably a little bit hard for you to see the pencil lines out there. I didn't really want to draw on my canvas with a Sharpie because I was concerned that then that Sharpie line is going to stay with me. See, sometimes it happens. You got to watch out. I guess I was talking to you and I didn't pay attention, so I'm just going to wipe that back out. Just wipe it out. There we go. Now pay attention this time. Oh, my brush still has that red in there too. Okay, there we go. And I want to stay on the lighter side, which I'm going to have to mix some color in. I just kind of painted over one of my circles there. We're just going to go for it. That might just be a change. So just trying to get a lot of blue and the background color in. And then I think I probably should switch to a smaller brush. See, somehow, one of the ways that can cut down how much time it takes on things like this is for you to use a bigger brush. However, then sometimes you do need to go ahead and switch to that smaller brush, because a house paint brush you cannot have as much control with as you can a regular artist brush. All right, so I'm going to switch to this and get the rest of that. Oops. I just tossed my paintbrush in there. Oh my. Oh well, it happens. Okay, I'm going to dip it in water because this one hasn't been used today. Well, sometimes days I just have a whole day of painting. Okay, I'm just trying to block in that color, block in the color. I can add a lot of more detail in there once I get this color blocked in. I'm trying to stay sort of close to those circles I made. Remember, a variation, if you maybe even like the scarier side of Halloween, you could add darker colors in. You could try this with a black, more of a black theme in there. When I do these, I try to stay in the middle. In the middle. Because some people, do one thing, some people do the other, and it's okay. We live in a country that accepts that. Oh, I thought that was a line. You know what it actually was? It's my hair. Now, it kind of starting to look a little messy. We're in the middle. Some of my lines aren't as smooth as they probably should be. Well, sometimes it's about getting that color blocked in. We can take care of that later. We're just blocking in color because we want that color to get blocked in so that then we can come back and we can add those extras. Okay, now I think I've got I still have one spot. There we go. I'm getting it. I'm getting there. It just takes a little while. Some of the best things in life take a little while. Some of the best things in life take a little while. And I think this ghost is probably bigger than he ought to be. I'm going to put him on a diet. Make him a little slimmer. With the acrylic, it's going to dry, and you can always just go back in and add whatever color or however you want it to look. There's not a right way or a wrong way. There's your way. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Now, you see that had a little more gray in it from the fact that I left that gray in my brush. I think I might add just a teeny bit of black just to add a little more gray in another section, since you can kind of see that. And we do start to think about in the fall, this time of year, we start to think about the fact that those days are getting colder and longer and they seem darker. I always think the trees start to look a special way. Well, not only those leaves, I know that's the first thing you probably thought of was the leaves, but I always think that the bark takes on a special look. It takes on has a more textured look in it. And you could always take a painting like this and do that, add that into it too. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave that part. And we're going to turn the painting back around, because now what we're hoping is, which I think the goal is accomplished. Yes. This is dry. So now I can come back in here and I can paint my pumpkins. I'm going to paint my pumpkins. Now, because I did not grab orange, I am using red and yellow. Now, I'm using craft paint, which means that it looks a little more white. You can, or at least my eyes can sense that that's a has a teeny bit of white in it. Maybe I'm a little more used to seeing those colors. So I'm going to paint a first coat, and I may want another one, we'll see. So I'm mixing the yellow, and I'm mixing the red. I already had some mixed on this plate, but I'm going to mix a little more. My paint seems a little dry. Now when I do add water, I dip. I do not slosh around. You can see that my water, I've already painted one painting today, and now we're on a second painting, and you can only see a little bit of blue there. You don't want a lot of water with these. You waste a lot of paint when you put a lot of water on your brushes. You can wash them when you're finished. Just wash them good when you're finished. Okay, now I'm trying to go the direction, you know, this direction, the round. I'm going round like that. You don't want to go back and forth like this. I'm going to go around and around. Okay. Now, I'm dipping because my paint's a little dry there. Only dip if your paint's dry because you're trying to keep this just the minimal paint. If you want it to be more textured later, you can go back and add that. But our goal is that we get this done in about an hour. And I don't think it's necessary, like you see that there's a little bit of white edges around. I don't really think it's necessary that you go in there and shore those up because we're going to put some grass around that pumpkin like it was still in the field, or maybe someone just set them up as decoration in a yard with grass. You could look at that either way. Part of this is the story you want to tell with your painting. You are the artist. You are the creator. Some people will tell me, well, I'm just not creative. Well, I kind of think maybe it's the fact they haven't practiced creativity. They haven't practiced creativity. I grew up with a mother who was always letting us have a chance to be creative. And then, of course, I spent 40 years teaching, and I practice creativity. You know, it's funny when I'm out in public, people will say to me, they're like, well, what is your favorite art? And I kind of chuckle and go, well, I don't know. And they're looking at me, but you're an artist? And I'll go, well, you know, I learned that when you're an art teacher, you learn enough about the arts, whatever art it is you are teaching to the students, that you know enough to teach whatever level it is. And I taught elementary many years. I did teach other. Like I said, I've taught three-year-olds to 103-year-olds. But it's still, you know, it's the art I practice. Probably my favorite is folk art. I do now on my own. I do folk art. And I like to tell the stories. It's about telling the story is what my folk art is about. Okay, I'm going to let those pumpkins dry. I'm going to hopefully, most of my blue is dry. I think it's not, like a couple areas, but I'm going to try to get that white painted in for the ghost. Now my brush I used for the blue at the end after I got the basics blocked in, it has a little color mixed in with it. See if I can pull out another paper towel here. I'm going to just try. I dipped in water. Now I'm wiping it off. Wipe, wipe, wipe. And I'm looking at my paper towel going, up, I need to do it again. I need to do it again. Dip, wipe. There's not too much left. All right, so now I'm going to paint white. Actually, my white has gotten red in it. So I'm going to have to take my paper towel, wipe off my brush, and find me a different spot to squirt out some more white. Now, if you have a problem, you just keep going. You just figure it out, keep going. It'll work out. We'll make it. There's no problem we can't figure out. And I'm not going to paint a lot on this. I'm just kind of color sheeting it. So I'm trying to paint it in, trying to stay fairly close to my line unless I don't like the shape of the ghost. Paint, paint, paint. I like to paint, and I like to tell stories as I paint. Paint, 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 paint. I do like to spend some time painting. I like to celebrate the season with painting. Paint, paint, paint. Now go slow. Go slow. Up, up. Stay in line. Well, mostly. I mostly did. Okay. Now you can see my pencil lines. So they might show. We might have to do another coat, or we might just decide that some of those lines are defining the ghost. Because I have been known to take that pencil and go back in there and make my ghost, or whatever I'm painting, just a little rounded. It's a little bit harder to make the dimension on a painting when you're doing it fast, but we'll get the basics in and then we'll go from there. Because you can always let it dry and go back in. Oh, I think I better take my scarf off. It's going to drag. I don't want to get paint on my scarf. And here I go. Oh, maybe not that one. Oh, here, this one will work. I guess the green girls got after that one. It happens. I just use a different brush. That's why you bring a bunch of brushes. Just whatever brushes you have. Just bring a bunch of brushes. I do have to think a little more. It looks like a little green is showing up in my yellow. Ah, let's just put more yellow there. We'll just pile her up with yellow. You know, I often think about, when you make a mistake on something. I was in the college art lab. Oh my goodness. I spent so many hours in that place. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. You know, you had to do India ink, and you had to do this, and you had to do that. And I had that India ink in my hand, trying to figure out what was I going to do. I wanted a good grade. What am I going to do? Well, I piddled around and spilled it on the floor. You know, just everywhere. You know how some things go like that. I just spilled it. So I got it all over my hands when I was trying to clean up, and I just took my hands at fingerprints and just fingerprinted my page. I'd already messed up my artwork, or so I thought. And do you know what I did? I ended up finishing that painting and completing it, and I got an A on it. I was like, oh man, that was a lucky mistake. So there is no wrong. There's just, oh, well, I messed up on what I thought I was going to do. Let's switch and do something else. Okay, so now we're going to turn back around. Turn back around. Kind of look at it. I think I'm going to work on the grass a bit. Let's see, what kind of brush might work good this time? I think a little one. I'm going to do a little one. Now I'm going to want to go back and get that goldenish color I had, a little brown, mixed in with some yellow, makes some golden. And I'm gonna like just make it look like grass around. Just a little bit here and there. The art professor, some of my things I tell her from the art professor and some are from the high school teacher. You just kind of have to do a little bit of this. You just kind of have to do a little bit, and you kind of get the look of what it is. That's grass. That's grass, and it's kind of dying out because it is fall, and it is late fall. I bet you like going to a pumpkin patch. Even we adults think that's fun. When I was a kid, even though I lived in a rural area, in a farm area, we didn't have pumpkins. They had cash crops, mostly in my area. We really didn't grow that many, so we just had to go to the store and buy them most of the time. But nowadays we have all kinds of really fun fall festivals. And this painting does take a little bit longer than some of the others I've done with you all. Anybody who's followed me at Mid-Continent Public Library. I've been doing virtual paintings ever since they switched to some virtual when the pandemic started. I enjoy technology and trying to learn the next step on it. All right, now I'm going to get me some brown, little green with it. I'm going to make me some stems for my pumpkins. So I just kind of think they look a little more natural if they have kind of a crook in them. Do they have to? Oh, we know some pumpkins have a straight stem. It does. It just maybe adds a little more character, a little more rhythm. Some of those art words, a little more rhythm. You're guiding the eye to where you want it to be on it. Okay. Now you can also come and up here, just right above that. If you just do a little bit in that blue area, you add a little more gold in there so that it kind of looks like the grass of a field. Now I went too much gold, so what do? You grab some green. I'm going to wipe this off. I'm going to grab some green, and I'm going to go back on top of some of those. There's not a mistake. There's just going forward and figuring out how to change it so it looks appropriate. That's how art works. I know a lot of people who are so afraid of it being perfect, that they never finish. So sometimes it's about getting yourself to finish something. Just finish. Do it again and make it better. After you finish that one, do it again, make it better. So I'm going to leave that. If we have more time, we can come back and add some grass. However, I'm a little bit concerned that we might not have enough time to do that. So I'm going to let that be till see how we're doing on our timing, because we do want to try to finish in our timely manner. Okay, I want to wait on the ghosts because the ghosts are not quite dry. I think I will do, just to get my proportions going here, I'm going to do the flame. Some people think it's a flame, some think it's a bush. Like I said, you can go out there and read these things on Van Gogh because a flame's not black, but, I don't know. I'm not going to go into that discussion. I'm going to let you figure that out or call it what you want. But it's something that goes like this on the edge of his painting. And I told you about the ear and what I did. Well, I also, sometimes when I wanted to celebrate Van Gogh, I wore not a real one, but a pretend crown of thorns. Oh, wait, thorns? That's not right. That's a different story. I pretend candle. So I make it look like candles on my head. And I would pretend to paint a Van Gogh painting. Like I said, I like Van Gogh. I like the texture, the different textures that he does. He wasn't afraid to put that texture in there, and I like that. Now I'm going to let that dry just a little bit, and then you can come back and add some color in that. I added the ribbing of the pumpkins. I added that with a pencil. So that's something you could do later. I'm going to go back and add in some of the swirl lines around the ghost. Now I actually did the eyes and the mouth with a Sharpie because I could have more control. If you have a lot of control of a paintbrush, then you might want to do that. All right, let's see what brush I have that would work, that has the right color in it, or that I can change to the right color real fast. Okay. Now this one is very interesting. So this brush used to be a lot wider than that. But what I found out is the kids would brush it like this and they would scrub it off. They would, be harsh with it. But it still makes a nice little point there that I can still use. So I'm going to use blues and maybe some purples, and I'm going to make the lighting around like it's, the yellows. All right, here we go. We're just going to do little lines. And I'm just going to follow like what I would consider wind lines. I would consider as the ghost, the ghost maybe is being blown around by the wind. So I'm just going to randomly put some yellow lines here and there. Trying to keep the paint. I don't want tons of paint. I want it to be light, sometimes heavier, just a tad heavier, then just a tad lighter. Because as the wind would catch that, we know when we look at the light and the wind's blowing around, we know that it looks different times. If I see something I think I need to go back to, just go back. And I've told people before in other classes, and I'll tell you all, that I just set the paintings out somewhere in my house, and I go, oh, does that look like what I want it to? Do I need to add something? I don't just go hide it. I got over that a long time ago. It is my painting. I'm going to improve, but I'm going to put it out. I always like to tell that story about, when I went to other people's houses and they had paintings of their family, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm not sure that looks like your family. I didn't tell them that. Don't tell them that. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it with mine. So I do stand up when I'm doing this. I think when you're making these lines like this, some of this blocking in, sitting down is fine, but when you're making these lines, I think the flow of it goes better if you're standing. I think the flow of it goes better if you're standing. Now I'm going to go back and put more yellow on these spots. And if the yellow's a little thicker here, because I'm not going to do a lot on top, or I could even do that on top later, I'm not going to worry quite as much about it being super dry, because I could add that at the very last, or like I said, even later. All right, so now I want a few more of these yellow. So I'm dipping once, and then I'm doing like, 3 or 4. This depends on how it runs out, maybe 5 or 6 sometimes. Okay, now I'm going to switch to a blue. To me, in the craft paint, one of the hardest things to find is a darker blue. So I, a lot of times, will go for the expense of buying a tube because the blues that they have in acrylic paint are this color, and sometimes you just want a dark. I mean, sometimes you can find a little one that looks like it's darker. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not as dark as you think. So I'm still trying to do, a little bit of heavy, a little bit of light. I'm trying to follow that same kind of wind pattern, and it sets in a lot of dimension when you have the different colors. Just keep going. You can do it. You can do it. Keep on going. Go, 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 go. You got this. You got this. You do. You're doing great. Just keep it up and go to completion. Because sometimes when you get to this point, you're like, oh, I'm tired. I don't really want to finish. Well, sometimes if you don't finish, you don't want to come back to it. Because then you'll start picking at yourself and go, well, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been better. It's about getting it finished. It's about getting it finished. Because you can't always be better. But it's about finishing and then going to another level later. I know people in my life that they didn't finish things. They just didn't finish. And then they never did go back and try. They never did try again. They just kind of thought that was a failure. Well, get it finished and you will succeed. If you finish it, you will succeed. And if you want to improve skills, hey, great. If you like what you did, great. Just enjoy. Life is about enjoying. Don't be hard on yourself. One lady one time was telling me when she took one of the classes, she's like, oh, this is a break. This is a relaxing time. Oh, thank you for the mental break. And maybe part of that is just because I try to encourage you that it doesn't have to look a certain way. If your pumpkins don't look like mine, it's not a big deal. If you didn't put this bushy thing right here, it's not a big deal. You could even add in here some of the little buildings that you see in Van Gogh's. I always liked, because I lived in the Kansas City area, I always liked to add the cityscape. I always had that as an option with students when we would do something like that. It was like, put in where you live. Put something that's an iconic kind of place of where you live. All right, I'm going to see about purple. Now, I don't have purple, so what do? I go to my old trusty plate. Now, this is the lighter craft blue, and this is the darker. So I think I want to use the darker. And go here on the edge of my red. And I think that purple is one of those tricky colors. I think that sometimes we think about purple as being more of what I would consider in the lavender category. Okay, it's really hard to see it because it's dark. Okay, I am going to add just a tad of white here, just to lighten it up a bit. Okay, I think I am good with that. All right, so I'm going to come back in here. I have some little crusties around it. I want to wipe that off my brush. But you see, I'm showing you a brush that I am using that other people would have thrown away. I did see other people throw them away. I was like, no, I can use that. I figured out a way. Just figure out a way. If you stay creative, your brain helps you out figuring out a way. Okay, I added a teeny bit more white because when I put it on the canvas there, you couldn't see. It just looked dark. So I'm going to add a little white, add a little where I mixed up the purple. Paint, 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 paint. I surely do like to paint, paint, paint. Looks like I do have some green in mine too. I think I better get me a little swig of water. Paint, 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 paint. We're gonna get this painting finished, and it's not gonna be that long, and you'll have your own masterpiece. You made it. You made it, and you can be proud of that. You are doing awesome. Just keep it up, keep it up. We're gonna make it. We're getting close. Getting closer and closer and closer. Now, if you wanted to have a little darker look of some of the Halloween darkness, you can go back in there and you can add in some more purples or maybe even a little bit of lighter black to it. You may or may not want to do that. You may like it is. Now, you'll see on mine that I did more of a little peck. I think I like this. It's a little more of a dry brush stroke. You know, these paintings, they ebb and flow over time, as you see, even with me. Okay, I'm going to go back in on some of these. Now, it's going to take in and blend some of the paint that's already there that's not quite dry, and I think that'll be fine. If you don't like that look as I'm doing it, if you go, oh, you know, I don't think I want that, well, just hold up or use the blow dryer. This painting, it takes a little more time than some of them, so that's why I was trying to just rotate around and not use the blow dryer on it. But you certainly could stop and do that if you would like. You can also come back to this. Paint, 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 paint. I like to paint. All right. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try to put in the eyes. Now, like I said, you can use a permanent marker on those if you would like. Totally, you know, just do it totally with that. Sometimes what I do is I do paint and do the best I can at keeping my hand still. Well, if I don't do as good as I want, then I go back and I use that Sharpie, the black permanent marker, to just kind of round it out. Now see what I did? I'm using my finger. Keep my finger to help keep me steady. And I realize I might have done more of this than you have, but the Sharpie works great. The black permanent marker works great. You could also, after it dries, if you want to add a little white spot in there, or you want to add something else with your ghost. Now I'm gonna, because I'm right-handed, I'm gonna just see if I can do like this. I'm still trying to hold my finger down. It's a little more difficult. to do it up. Now some people take and they do a ruler or another paintbrush and they hold it steady like that. I never was as good at getting that done. All right, the other eyes. Seeing how that did, I'm going to dip in water. Remember, I'm not swooshing around in water. I dip. I want just a little bit of water. Because we're painting, we're more of a dry brush painting. Trying to keep it pretty dry. If you mess up on the eyes and you don't like them at all, let them dry. You can use the blow dryer on them and dry them. Let them dry. And then just go back in and paint them again. You might have to do several coats of white to cover it up. That might be right. And you still can see my pencil lines. I don't know if on camera you can, but I know like these I still had some. And so what I did is I just drew more. I drew more on there because a ghost is kind of a wispy kind of creature. And so the winds are blowing through him and we can see, or her, and we can see some of those shapes in there. All right. Now let's see, we are getting really close. I think I'm going to add the ribbing on my pumpkins. Like I said, you could do that with just a pencil. That's what I did on some of mine. I did it with a pencil, but I'm going to just do real quick a little bit of that. So I'm just going to start with a stem. Come like this. And you could add another coat on the orange if you wanted. Maybe you'll decide, well, I'd like those pumpkins to be just a little bit. And I just went for traditional colors. You can always change that out if you like something else. I just tend to go with traditional on this, and then you can change it for what you like. And you don't have to have a lot for them to get the idea of what this should look like. As the professor always said, you just gotta deceive the eye enough that the brain takes over and goes, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I wonder what he would think if he knew I was quoting him so much. I won't tell you who he is. Just a professor in the art department. I remember being concerned when I went to college that I didn't have enough art skills. I don't have enough art skills. I went back to my high school teacher and I was like, I don't have enough art skills. I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? He's like, oh, well, you can do more than you think. So I would say that to you. Don't worry about your skill level. You can do more than you think. Just apply yourself. Just apply yourself and keep trying. Okay, well, there's the basics. Now you see that like this, you can see more sky behind. You could go back and whiten that up if you wanted. You could put some more of these swirly lines around. You know, you can go back and do all those kinds of things if you would like. Like I told you, Van Gogh is one of my favorite people. Don't forget, you want to sign your name. Sign your name. All right. Well, this is a Van Ghoooostly time. And this is a wrap for this painting. You have a great day now.